Today, I'm collecting,
oh, this box is big,
the Ewok Village action playset from 1983. And I do a full history and review of this playset. Plus, I go over how Kenner recycled playsets, not just for Star Wars toys, but used designs for other toy lines. So let's go. Welcome back to the journey. I am on a quest to collect all the Star Wars vintage playsets made from 1977 to 1985. So if you have to catch up, go to episode 1 and do some binge watching until you end up right here. And it's no secret that sometimes toy companies repack or even recycle toys to release later, or even reuse those designs in completely different toy franchises. So is that being resourceful, or is that being lazy? Well, if you're working at a toy company as an engineer, especially at Kenner in the late 70s and early 80s, they used to have a room in the headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio called the morgue. Morbid, I know. But that's where many of the prototypes and ideas that didn't quite make it ended up. It was even a storage place for release toys if ever they needed to break out a figure or a playset and kit bash them. So for those of you who don't know what kit bashing is, simply put,
kit bashing or model bashing is a practice whereby a new scale model is created by taking pieces out of kits. These pieces may be added to a custom project or to another kit. For professional model makers, kit bashing is popular to create concept models for detailing movie special effects.
And for toy makers, it's the same. It's how we famously got the original Star Wars figures.
Lead toy designer Jim Swearingen used Fisher-Price's Adventure People as the base because they were the ideal size to build vehicles, ships, and playsets around. Something that Jim knew was gonna be the major focus of making the Star Wars toy line a success. So with a little putty, Bondo, and modeling clay came the kit bash prototypes of these figures. And if you meet Jim, just don't ask him where these figures are. Not knowing that these would one day be historical relics and worth more than a family-sized home, Kenner disposed of them.
Can I just go back in time and dumpster dive the trash that very day?
After the kit bashing, they went to the toy engineers and product designers to make them functional, safe, and cost-effective for production runs. And all working under tight deadlines, tight budgets, and sometimes a skeleton crew of staff.
This is where recycling of ideas and toys comes into play. And here is a list of some Star Wars toys that have been famously recycled, repacked, or straight out reused.
The Land of the Jawas playset was first introduced in 1979 with a reissue later that year with a rebate offer, and in Sears Canada, it offered a free Jawa inside. It came with a molded plastic base that had an action lever to make the figures move or fall over in battle, an escape pod that opened up to house figures, and the cardboard background that had an elevator mechanism. Then in 1980, for the Empire Strikes Back line of toys, with the history of being behind the calendar on getting toy releases to store shelves, they not only reused the Land of the Jawas playset once, but twice for the Empire Strikes Back. The first being the Hoth Ice Planet. They took the base of the Tan Jawa playset and molded it in white plastic, keeping all the levers and pegs. The Sandcrawler was replaced with a cardboard AT-AT with the same elevator feature, and in lieu of the escape pod, a radar laser cannon, which by the way is a totally different design than the later issued box toy. The following year, in 1981, Kenner would reuse this playset once again in the Rebel Command Center. First released as a Sears exclusive to help sell more action figures, this one came with a Hoth Luke, AT-AT Commander, and R2 with sensor scope. It came with the same white plastic base in the Hoth Ice Planet, and a new cardboard background depicting the Rebel base. Up next, the Droid Factory. First issued in 1979, then for The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, this was one of the most unique playsets because of the build feature in the parts that came with the set. It featured a plastic orange base, a crane, a blueprint, and droid parts that included an R2 unit that you can build that featured a third leg. Kenner reused this playset in the first of 2 Jabba's Dungeon playsets. The first in 1983 as a Sears exclusive. The plastic base was this time painted gray and with minor changes in the mold to get rid of the areas where the original droid factory had to store the parts. The crane was added, but this time added a hook and a branding iron where 88 could torture droids. And this set included the action figures of Claytu, 88, and Nikto. The second issue of Jabba's Dungeon came in 1984 as a Sears exclusive, this time with a tan color base, but reusing the same mold and crane as the previous Jabba's Dungeon. The major difference was in the action figures released, the Power of the Force figures of Amanaman, EV-99, and Barada, although the Sears catalog listed his name as Barbado. And if you're enjoying the content so far, please hit the like button. That does support the channel. And also, please consider subscribing. And please visit thepadawancollector.com, where you can see blogs, bonus material, and you can visit the Collector Depot for accessories that you may need for your collection. And now we get to the part where Kenner just didn't reuse the toys for the same line, but the same toys for different lines. The Ewok Village was first released in 1983, and since there were 8 Ewoks released in the Star Wars movie line and 6 for the cartoon line, this playset was a must to house them all in. And it boasted so many play features that we're going to get into later on in the episode. But in the early 90s, Kenner went back to this design for the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves playset, this time adding in a nice lush canopy of trees. But Kenner didn't do this just for this set of toys. Nope. Here's a quick list of toys that they reused for other toy lines. The Gamorrean Guard was used for Friar Tuck from the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves toy line in the 90s. And the $6 Million Man Bigfoot was used in the Chewbacca 12-inch line. The 1979 Creature Cantina set was reused and turned into the saloon for the 1980s release of the Western Cafe playset. The 1979 Collector's Action Display Stand was reused for the 1981 Glamour Girls Fashion Stand. And the 1985 Ewok Battle Wagon was used in 1991's Robin Hood Prince of Thieves Battle Wagon. And there are many other oddball items that Kenner recycled from other toy lines. But what are your favorites that I left out? And there's probably a ton. Let us all know down there in the comments. But for this week's playset, here is the short history of the Ewok Village action playset. Released in 1983 for the Return of the Jedi line of toys, it retailed for $19.99, which in today's prices with inflation is $54.74, which in my mind is a great value considering the prices of action figures today. By the time this playset was on store shelves, Star Wars mania had reached its peak, and this was due in part to how popular the new characters in the Ewoks were to children. And this may come as a surprise, but critics and some hardcore Star Wars fans at the time of the movie's release thought that the inclusion of the Ewoks was a pander to commercialism to sell toys to kids, and was one of the weaker additions to the Star Wars franchise. But Lucas had always said that Star Wars was for children, and in this decision, he has always stood by it. The Ewoks were originally supposed to be Wookiees, but when that was changed in the script, mostly due to budget and logistics of casting actors that were 6'10" in height at least, it was decided to cut the Ewoks in half and make them tribal beings that lived on the moon of Endor. Even the name Ewok has a special origin. George Lucas said he inverted the Wookiee name, the Woo, and the Key into Ewok, and he also had inspiration from a Northern Californian Native American tribe called the Miwok. Thus, the name Ewok came from those two sources. And what about the Ewok character design? Well, according to George Lucas, the look of the Ewoks came from a breed of dog called the Brussels Griffon. So with that breed of dog as the inspiration, designer Stuart Freeborn made them come to life. So on my toy hunt to get the Ewok Village, I went to one of my favorite local San Diego vintage toy shops called TC's Rockets. And I found a gorgeous example of a box with the playset inside being sold for $400, but it didn't include the boulder. So what did this playset come with if you were to open this box in 1983? So while I was on my hunt, I went to a website at rebelscum.com, and in a forum, they list out what came inside the box of this playset. The heavy ply cardboard box, which has photo art on the front and line art on the back, with photos of the playset features on the side and line art of the features on the opposite side of the box. Then inside would have been the heavy cardboard insert, the Return of the Jedi mini catalog, a sticker sheet for the fire pit, the instruction sheet, the plastic vintage platform base, the foldable elevator, one large tree trunk, one medium tree trunk, and one small tree trunk. 3 platform extensions, a large one, a medium one, and a small one, a fire pit, a drum, one boulder with one medium string, one net with 2 large strings, 3 support struts, 3 railings, the split, which is in 3 parts, the rotisserie handle, and 2 support branches. The throne also comes in 3 parts, and 1 small T-cap.
And it's hard to find this playset complete anywhere because of all the loose parts that this playset came with. So to find one complete, it's not rare, it's just hard.
So the parts that I saw that were missing on this playset was the cardboard insert, the Kenner mini catalog, the fireplace sticker sheet, and at first they said it was missing the boulder, but they were able to find a loose boulder and they gave that to me attached to a string. So at least the entire playset itself is complete. And they're also missing the instruction sheet, but I asked a collecting friend of mine if they had an instruction sheet for sale soon, and they did. So that one, it's on its way.
So getting this playset home, I did my usual cleaning routine.
I dusted the whole playset with canned air. Then I wiped down with a fragrance-free wipe, and I let that air dry out of sunlight. The materials that I use for cleaning are down in the description of this video. When I get playsets from brick and mortar stores, they usually have been sitting on the shelves for a while and have collected dust, even inside the box. You can honestly feel the dust film when you first inspect the toy. Usually sellers at these brick and mortar stores won't clean these unless they're also posting these online to sell like on eBay and have to represent the toy in as perfect shape as possible.
And since this playset has a lot of pieces, it's also one of the hardest playsets to put together. And since I don't have the instruction sheet on hand, I went to the magic of the internet and pulled one up. Wish me luck.
Attach the 3 identical support struts onto the bottoms of the large, medium, and small platform extensions. Attach the largest platform to the largest tree trunk, the medium platform to the medium tree trunk, and the smallest platform to the small tree trunk. Now, since my netting came stringed already, I would have had to weave the string through the netting myself in this pattern.
I wonder how many parents and kids got super frustrated like on Christmas morning and just decided not to use the net and just simply throw it away.
But once the netting was threaded, you run it through the underside of the platform through a designated notch, then it gets fed to the T-cap. Connect the ends of the strings by tying a knot. On the large tree trunk platform is a raised split peg. Run the end of the net string through this split peg and place the T-cap over it. You can pull the string to raise or lower the net, and you can cap the split peg with the T-cap to hold it in place. And after you've taken an hour just to gather your wits from setting that up, you can move on to attaching the main platform base to the tree trunks. There are notches that slide in and lock into place. Don't wiggle them too much or you'll break the fragile plastic clips that lock this platform into place. This also goes for the trunk platforms. This is 40-year-old plastic and very hard to replace. Next, place the fireplace in the center of the platform. Mine came already assembled, and most of them, bought in the wild, come this way today. Place the drum in the notch designated for it on the platform, as well as the 3 railings. To assemble the Spitfire grill, place the 2 split branches on the ends of the fire pit, and the rotisserie handle rests on these branches. You can then place an action figure, namely Han, onto the split for the Ewoks to dine on. The wrists of the action figure fit into the split plastic claws, and the feet rest on the T-mount. The elevator originally comes flat, but to assemble it, simply bend the piece together and the crossbar snaps in place. My elevator came with a broken string, but you would simply thread the short string through the hole in the elevator crank and tie a knot to this to stabilize. Then taking the other end of the string and tying this to the elevator crossbar. You can place an action figure in the elevator and raise or lower the elevator by rotating the elevator crank. You can lock the elevator by pulling on the crank to lock it in place. On the large tree trunk, there is a branch stump at the top. This is where the boulder can be hung from. Taking the middle length string, you tie this to the end of the boulder, and on the other end, you tie this around the groove part of the branch stump. The rock can be swung to defend the village against attackers. The throne originally comes in 3 parts: the carrier, the throne base, and the throne itself. But usually these days, it already comes assembled if you find this loose. And you can have the action figures, namely C-3PO, sit on the throne, while Ewoks or other action figures carry them around. And the final feature, the escape chute, where figures can escape the village in case of hazards, fire, or to get out of cooking duties. When it's all set up, it's one of the largest playsets in the vintage Kenner line, weighing in at 5 pounds, standing at 14 inches tall and 16 inches wide. Only the Kenner Death Star space station is larger. To help me keep creating content like this, please become a YouTube channel member, with membership starting as low as 99 cents a month. You'll get early access to videos before the public does, members-only live streams, extra entries into all giveaways, and special member shoutouts. Just hit the join button below the screen, and welcome to the Academy.
So what do I think of this playset? I have to say that once it was all put together, and once I had a chance to use all the play features and display all the figures on it, it was one of the most enjoyable experiences that I have had on this run. And as a huge Return of the Jedi fan, I mean, in 1983, I was only 6 years old. I was manic about Star Wars. And if I had this back in 1983, I would have been in heaven. Just because I could have replayed all the scenes on Endor with this playset. So the nostalgia factor on this playset is extremely high. And I think this is an essential playset if you're a vintage Star Wars collector, because of the fact that it shows so many iconic scenes within that movie. So we get to the negative aspects of this toy. This was the hardest playset that I have ever put together, just because it was so tedious. And I could imagine the parents who had to start from ground zero putting this playset together. I mean, especially tying that net together, as well as the many, many small parts to keep track of. And I could have seen kids back in 1983 getting completely frustrated with this toy. So I can't say that this is the most kid-friendly playset out there. It's a highly durable toy, but with all the small parts and the fact that you had to put so much of it together, it's great looking. It may be a beautiful playset, but as they say, beauty is pain. And there's also the fact that when the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves playset came out, it included a nice canopy of trees, and this does not include that. It looks like a dead forest. And on Endor, we knew how lush it was. So I'm bummed that this design never came with a nice canopy of trees. But here's another positive. The fact that there was also an Ewok cartoon line of toys, you could definitely use this playset and use that as a diorama for those toys. So it's a really compelling case for any action figure collector to get this playset. So how much can you expect to get this playset for in today's markets?
According to the Star Wars Tracker, you can find a complete version of the US release mint in box selling for lows of around $300 and highs of around $700. And loose complete, you can find these selling for around $200. And I got mine at TC's Rockets, and initially they wanted $400 for it, but because it was missing the fireplace sticker, the cardboard insert, the Kenner catalog, the instruction sheet, and because the elevator string was clipped, they moved it all the way down to $300 for me. So let's cross this off our list. And we got the box playset at TC's Rockets for $300 and the instructions from a Facebook seller for a grand total of $320. And right now, I don't have an acrylic case for it as I don't know who sells one. So if anyone knows of a company who might make these, let me know in the comments.
So what did you think of this playset? Do you have one? Or are you on the hunt for one right now? And did this video help you out? Let us all know down there in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, please hit that like button. That does support the channel. And also, please consider subscribing if you want to see more Star Wars and collecting content from me. And hit that notification bell so you know when episodes go live. I post videos every Sunday with bonus content throughout the week. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time. This playset has so many parts. I'm like dropping parts everywhere.
If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.